Hello everyone, Kerry the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with a little project, sort of a mass make, inspired by my friend Darcy Sanders, and the video I'm referring to I will put a link to in the description box below. Now, Darcy currently is doing, and I'm so going to murder how this is said, Defemberembra, or Making Ephemera, by Barbara from 49 Dragonflies and Louisa Hansel, I believe it is. I'm not doing that challenge or that thing, but I see lots of people are, and it looks fabulous what they're all doing. Anyway, in the one that I was watching the other day, Darcy, part of what she did, made some envelopes and went, that's a good idea. I haven't got enough stock. Well, I don't think I've got any envelopes in my stash at the current. So I went through and I found something that I want to make them from. Now, I have music paper, and I like this music paper. It's sort of yellowy where it's old, but it's good enough for what I normally use it for, which is turning journal pages. But I remembered that when I actually bought that in a charity shop, charity is a thrift or a Goodwill shop to those who don't have charity shops, the shop was actually having a buy one, get one free sale. So I went looking for music paper, which you've just seen I bought. However, the only other music paper on there was a book on how to play the flute that had music in. Now, I could have picked up another book. I didn't, because I have plenty of book pages here, and there was nothing there that had an interesting enough cover or content. So there was another book, as I said. However, it was a very modern book. Well, modern, I think it says 1958 it was published, but it was white, and I mean white, as you can see. Now, I thought, right, I picked it up anyway, because why not? It's going to be free, because I bought one and get one free. So what I've done is I've taken all of these pages out of the book, and I've trimmed off the blank side at the blank sides and the base. I've left the tops in. I've also cut, some of them had images on, so I've cut them down, because for what I want them for, it doesn't really matter, and the size of it. And I'm not going to give you dimensions in this, guys, because the dimensions will be completely up to you in what you want to do and how you want to do it. So we're going to make some envelope bases. So I'm classing this as a bit of a mass make. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a whole pile of bases for myself, which will be envelopes. And then maybe in a future video, I'll decorate a couple of them up. The techniques I'm using are probably not unfamiliar to you because I've done them before, but I've done them before and I really enjoyed them. So let's get on and let's get some stuff onto here. I'm not using my gel plate today. This is just a big ceramic tile. My local hardware store had a couple. Obviously, the pack of them must have broken and they had these, and I use these as a paint palette. I use this as a drying surface, lots of stuff. Big ceramic tile, love it. I know someone's going to ask me the dimensions of this, aren't you? Right, it's 10 3/4 inches by 14 inches, which is 36 centimeters by 27.5 centimeters. There you go, we've dealt with that. Now, I recently purchased myself a new Distress Ink vintage photo. The reason being is sorry, that's very bad English, I've had this one a very long time. We're talking several years. I don't really get along with re-inkers, so I would rather just buy a new one when I need it, and then I use the old one for this sort of process. So all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting inks down, and later on I'm going to use some acrylics as well. We're going to build up some really inky sort of vintagey looking papers that I can then turn into envelopes. So let's be quiet, get on with it. Water, spray, and inker. I've got another one which has been in my stash for a while, which is called Sunflower, which I don't even know how to get into it. How do I get into you? It says press. No, it doesn't say. Okay, so I'm going to use this as well, just to bolster up the colour of that. But to be honest with you, only because I don't use this for anything. So all I'm doing now, this can be done on a glass mat. You've probably seen Tim Holtz do this. You've probably seen other people do this. Now, this is looking a bit juicy because I've already been doing some of these, so it's wet. So I'm putting, it's the water-soluble one, or the water-active one, and this is a water, what was the wording on it? A water-based dye ink. So, obviously, they react with water. Now, I wouldn't do that. I'm just dipping them in, guys. I wouldn't do this with vintage music paper because it may not hold up to the test of time. And what I'm doing is I'm going to do both sides, but I don't care if one side isn't completely perfect, because to be honest with you, this is going to be folded up. The side that's got some blotches on it will actually go into the inside of the envelope. Now behind me on the floor, I've got a big shower curtain, which is the one I use for all my gel printing. It's waterproof, so it's not going to let any moisture through to my flooring or my carpet below. And I'm just going to pop these behind me on the floor and leave them there. So if you're not someone who does coffee dyeing, this is actually a really nice way to do a version of it. Do I mind that I'm contaminating that yellow? No, because I've not really used that ink pad anyway. So I'm just coming in, and my intent is to get as much of these papers done, pause the video, and then dry them. And once they're dry, we'll come in and we will do other things with them, like we will, well, stick it to this plate, obviously. I will then use maybe acrylic paints, and I'll do some mark making on them just to make them look more interesting is my aim in life. So, because I must admit, I probably wouldn't use this music paper, this white. It just, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the look I enjoy when I'm creating a journal signature. Now, because it's a newish paper, I can pull it around a bit on this. It's not likely to tear easily as would a vintage paper. This also works, by the way, with different colours, which you've seen me make inky backgrounds before. Actually, have I? Yes, I do have videos on inky backgrounds. I will try and link one of my inky background videos as well here for you, because if you want to see this done with like index cards and stuff like that, it works perfectly well. Just to give you some bases that give you kind of that vintage feel. Now, I'm using a spray bottle of water because if I was to pour water on here, it would get far too wet. But the spray bottle, and this just, I don't know what this came with. This, whatever it was, I used it up and rinsed it out, and that's what I'm using now. So, now, obviously, I'm using sort of vintagey colours, probably things that will fall into, say, the fall range of colours. I would say it's probably what I was saying. As you can see, they're not all rectangle, they're not all full pages. Some of them are half pages. But doing this method, you could theme your paper to whatever you want your project to be. So as everyone's doing, well, not everyone, that would be an assumption, wouldn't it? As a lot of people currently are doing Christmas, you could use maybe blues and whites or greens and reds for this. You could actually do this vintage type look and then accent it with other coloured inks. I'm going to be trying to use some of my washout bottles of acrylic paints, and I'll explain that when I've done this. Right, I'm going to do one more, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the camera, do the rest of this bundle, dry them, and then come back to you, because then you can see the next part of the process. So I'm not trying to get uniform anything. I like a variety of colours because I don't know which journal they're going in. I mean, this one's more yellowy, but you know what? Maybe this might go into a spring journal or become a spring ephemera piece. Also, my intent is that these actually become envelopes. You could easily let these dry and just use them as tear sheets for collage, or even now they with this colour, they may look better in the journal you're using. So here I'm back again, and all I was using is, this is just a little travel hairdryer that I use to dry stuff. I tend not to dry papers, or most things actually, with my heat gun, because sometimes that heat gun is a bit too ferocious and could set fire to stuff. So there you go. Also, someone's bound to ask me, Kerry, why are you wetting papers, then drying papers, and then you're going to re-wet them? The reason is because when they're wet, they're soft, and when they're dry, they regain their rigidity. So if I was to keep working with wet papers, they're more likely to tear. It doesn't take long. And also, ink dries paler, so it gives me a better idea of what the colour is going to be when it's dry. So as you can see, these are just the sheets. Some of them I did leave a little more yellow than the others. And the reason for that is that I don't know which journal I'm going to be using these in. I could use them for a spring journal, maybe, and that's where the yellow we will come in. Some I've left with quite big patches of white on. Now, I intend that to be the inside, but I've left white on. I was going to say I could easily use that for the outside. So as you can see, here's one of the more yellowy ones. I just went, you know, I might want something with sunflowers on it, because I never know what I'm going to put on these. I could put rice paper, I could put tissues, I could put napkin, I could do umpteen different things, stickers, vintage book papers, things like that. Now, of course, if you've got this, if you fold it in half, you could easily put that in your journal, and you've got the equivalent of a coffee dyed paper without coffee dyeing paper. So there you go, that's quite an acceptable coffee dyed paper colour. Now, I would say the Tim Holtz inks, there's one, I think it's called Old Paper or something like that. I did try this with the Old Paper stamp. I haven't got it anymore. I gave it to a friend because I didn't like the colour. But it was a bit too greeny for me. Old Paper doesn't look that colour, but the vintage photo does come through. If you want it a bit darker, you can go for walnut. Yeah, there's a few colours I quite like for pages, but yeah, the Old Paper one, I think it was called, I don't so much like. Right, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on these again. Similar process, but this time I'm going to use paints. Now, I have these bottles, which are pretty much, when they're coming to the end of their life, I fill them up. They're acrylic paint, and I put water in them so you can see it better in this one. They're like a washout solution. I got the idea from Patricia at PM Artist Studio. That's actually just a regular paint. I'm not keen on this sheen colour. It's a bit gloopy, so that's another one I'll use. So as you can see, I'm just pulling in colours. This is another, is that the washout bottle? Which is the washout bottle? There you go. I do have these in other colours, and I put wash on them because they're very much diluted acrylic paint. Now, one thing to warn, ink will be transparent. Yeah. Can you hear that? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. However, paints that are not specifically marked transparent are going to be opaque. I don't mind that at this point. Another paint I pulled into is I pulled in Transparent White by Liquitex. Now, these are going to be more solid, as in, these are going to be not as runny. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not going to be firm consistency. They're not going to be flow. They're basically, they're going to be a little firmer than the washouts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some pieces on my plate. I'm not really caring where they're going, so you can see the consistency of this one here. I'm going to use up some of this because I never use this colour, light gold. So I'm just going to put a few pieces of that on there as well. This is very much a messy process. So what I would say is, if you are going to do this, and it is great fun because you can absolutely just go to town and do whatever you want, just make sure that you're in an area where if things get splashed, don't worry about it. Let's go run down there into my box of colours later. That's why I have behind me on the floor, I've got that shower curtain. Let's use some of this. I don't know what it is about this. I've got several of these extreme sheens because I think I bought them in a batch and I've never quite got to grips with them, should we say. So I'm literally putting colour down. Now this one is as it comes out the tube. This one isn't watered down, so I'm going to be a little more careful with that. Now, this is the time I'm going to pull out a store card and I'm literally going to move them around the plate, but not to the point where they get messy, where they get muddy. Unless, of course, it's the brown colour, which is the one that's brown there. So I'm just putting that down. My intent now is just to touch down these papers. I'm focusing on the side that the envelope is going to be made from. I'm not focusing on this side. So I'm literally going to come in and dab them down, pick them up, and I'm going to put these down to dry. Now, you did hear me say this is not the final stage. This is pretty much mass making for me. But what I do like about this process is, A, it's a good way to use up paints that maybe are getting a little tired or you don't use very often. It really gives the pages an interesting feel to them. Now, my envelopes I don't expect to be written on. You can write on acrylic paint. I would say probably use a gel pen or a pen that will write over a plastic-based product. Right, I'm getting to the point where this is beginning to, I wouldn't say dry, but get to the point where it's pretty much running out of its vim and vigor. So say as you're going along, change up the color combinations. Now, I like to put white in. I'm going to do it again right over the top of this because this will be drying, so I know that it's probably not going to pick up. I do like the tile because obviously the tile is a surface that can be wiped down and washed afterwards. One thing I would say, however, is if you're using this method and you're going to be washing this tile off in say your bathroom or your kitchen sink, I wouldn't. I would wash it off into a bowl of water and then take the water outside and dispose of it in maybe down your drain outside, because this is plastic-based acrylics, remember. So what that means is that you're going to find it could eventually clog up your sink. So I think you'd have to be going some to do that, but I always err on the side of caution. Right, I like that's more interesting. Let's pop that down. Now, I didn't put green in this one purely because I didn't put green in it. I'm trying to mix them up slightly so that I don't end up with a carbon copy of every single piece of paper. Looks the same. I want variety. Let's see, that's a little bit, I don't mind that little bit. Now, unlike the inks, this is going to dry the same color. Acrylics don't tend to fade. Well, they don't for me anyway. Maybe over time they might, but not used to that fading. So again, we're getting to the point where I'm going to reintroduce white to it. I like white. It seems to be my go-to. Also, I'm using a transparent white. No other reason than I have transparent white. I've got more of it than I do of a regular opaque white. A little bit of orange this time. Let's see what colour I put that on. Let's put the purple on this time. So this is just a fun technique, guys. I enjoy this. This is when, if I was on my own, without you watching, I put a music on in the background or a video, and I would just get messy. Just absolutely get messy. That's one thing my friend Darcy is helping me do by her videos, and she may not even know it, is she's helping me let go of my controlling perfectionism. Let's just put that out there on the table, shall we? And she does laugh and joke because she was named by, I think it was Lisa Heinzel, or Louisa Heinzel, the chaotic crafter. And actually, that's not a problem. I think it's a true description, and I think she owns it and she likes it. Now, once we've done all of these, and again, I'm not going to keep you sat around for the whole process, I'm then going to come in and do some mark making on top of these yet again. But there will be drying time in between, so expect me to turn the camera off at any moment because we'll get to the point where it needs it. Now, when this gets to the point where I'm finished with it, I might try and put a piece of paper on top and lift off anything I could, just anything from my scrap paper drawer, because I'm not about to waste it. I mean, a lot of it will just get picked up randomly like it is here. All right, let's do this last one and then I will turn you off again. Sorry, some of you don't like being turned off and you think you're missing something, but I'm very conscious that not everyone wants to see the entire process repeated, and that's me. I don't like seeing it repeated either. So we're going to pause this for 2 seconds for you, probably about 15 or 20 minutes while I finish off the rest of these papers, get them dry, and then I'll bring you back, and then we'll go on to the mark making side of it, which is where the fun comes. We'll do that for a bit, then I'll pause you again while I dry, and then we'll make up the envelopes. So back again, smooth this over to one side because I don't need it in the middle this time. Right, these are dry enough for me to work on. I must admit, when I do this without you watching me, I actually let them dry overnight, because sometimes the acrylic paint can be really thick. If you do find it's thick, you have options. You can either block one against each other or get something like kitchen paper, kitchen towel, and dab off the really thick areas, or you could just take a bit of tissue paper or something just to actually create more painty papers. Now, I know this isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea. You're not always going to have everyone go, oh, I really love those, but this is just the style I like. It's mixed media papers that I'm turning into mixed media envelopes, but it's not so much about duplicating what I'm creating. It's a case of just the technique, to be honest with you, because this could be adapted. This could all be done in inks. It could be done in watercolors. You could do it all in acrylics. I mean, there are certainly different things you can do. So now, next stage for me is I'm going to put detail on these. Now, I kind of have a personal rule for this, but it is just a personal rule. I will only do the next stage in either white, and this is the opaque white, it isn't the transparent white, and I will usually choose a metallic, whether it's gold or copper or bronze, those sort of colours, and there's a reason why. These are meant to be bases which will eventually be worked upon. At this point, I don't want to put something like black, which is a really high contrast drama onto them, because I don't know what they're going to be for journal wise, but putting the white on will always work with everything I'm going to put in there, and it gives it a fresh piece of detail on it. So that's why I'm not doing black at the current. As I said, there's a strong possibility. I mean, it's, what is it, 2 weeks to Christmas? Is it 2 weeks to Christmas? I think it's about the 14th of, yeah, it's 14th of December today, because this launches at midnight tonight. So in 2024, you'll probably see the follow-up video to this. I have no idea when it's going to come out. It's on my planner, but it'll be done when it's done. So now, it doesn't also matter which orientation you do these in. What I would say is try not to go too close to the top or too close to the bottom. Part of that is because part of the process will be we're going to fold this over and glue it later on, and I don't know which end is going to be used as that piece to fold over. So if I avoid both ends, we're doing well. Now, I picked up some stuff. I believe that was a pot holder that I found in Michael's. This is sort of a non-slip mat that I've had forever and a day. I think, well, it's obviously that's sort of a mitt for picking things up, but I like the honeycomb on it, and it wouldn't be me if there wasn't bubble wrap. So I'm basically just using those 4 texture things. You could use anything. You could use the inside of a roll of tape. You could use basically anything. You could even dab your fingers in and dab it across. But this is just what I'm using. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way through this pile, and I'm going to look at each one and go, what does it need? Now, obviously, this one's got lots of gold in it already. You can see. So I would probably just do this one in white. So my process is going to be, I'm going to have both colours on my piece of tile. I'm also put a reasonable amount down before I do anything else, because I'm going to be using a reasonable amount, and I'm going to smear it out a bit. I'm using the card. If you do have a gel plate, you could easily use your brayer and a small gel plate to do this, which for those of you who see me doing my backgrounds, that's how I do them. Bit of paint on there, I will just come in and smear it on. That one looks like it needs a bit of white. There you go. Doesn't bother me, just trying to get stuff across. So I think let's start with, actually, let's just come in with bubble wrap. I've got it on the go. You know, come in and I'm just going to put a couple of areas of bubble wrap done. That one's done. So let's put that up there. Now I've just put white on there, so let's come in with some gold. I'm going to use this non-slip mat thing. Put some gold on there. It's just enough to make it look interesting, as you can see. Now, I can't remember whether I've just said this in the video or not, because it's nearly lunchtime and I need to eat. My brain's gone dead on me. I would normally leave my prints overnight to dry, purely because I want there's quite a thickness of paint in some of these, and I actually want it to dry thoroughly before I do the next piece, which is assembling and then maybe punching or clipping or cutting. So I would probably wait overnight. This is just one of those jobs that I would do at the end of the day. Well, I'm going to use this. I love this one. It just smacks of industry to me. What's an idea? Oh, bear that thought, Griffiths. I just had a thought for a future video. So, right, now, I don't necessarily have to only have the one thing on the envelope. I could come in and choose to double stuff up. It depends on you. I mean, it's your art. But see, that's beautiful. I love that. And it's a case of trusting the process, which is really hard to do sometimes. As I've been heard to say many a time, you've got to go through ugly before you get to beautiful. Think of the ugly duckling story. So, yeah, very often I'll do something and I'm like, oh my Lord, what am I doing? But I've trusted that if I keep going, eventually it works. Now, I've got this honeycomb one, which I haven't used yet. Well, that actually looks like it needs white anyway. Let's do this in white then, see if I can pick up this. I haven't used this that often. Okay, that's cool. It's sort of the reverse of the bubble wrap. Now, obviously, if you're doing this for things like Christmas or Hanukkah, use the appropriate colours. And then you've got no problems whatsoever. So I'm just going to come with a little bit. I know I've got gold and gold, but I quite like that in there. That's a nice light coloured one. Now, it could be at the end of this process, when I come to have my finished pieces here, it could be that I decide they don't need decorating. It could be that they're going into maybe an art journal or a journal that's got this feel to it, and this is just something that tucks into a belly band or into a large pocket. And I've already said that just because they're being done as envelopes here, basically these are painted pieces of paper. So if you were to treat them like a digital, you can make anything from them, use them for collage, do whatever you wish. I like that, but I want a bit of the gold bubble wrap in there as well. Just right by there. As you can see, I'm seriously not giving a hoot and a holler of where I'm sticking these, but I am achieving a look. See, now for me, that's beautiful. It just needs a little bit of something, and I think I'm going to use the white there to pull in white down here. So just put a bit more of that white out. This process, guys, is just really fun. It's one of those things, or one of the things that I do when I'm like, you know, I just want to do something today, but I don't know what I want to do. And this sort of exercise, just making painty papers or just putting paint down and getting messy, there's something really nice about just getting your hands dirty. I think it takes you back to being a child. Mind you, as a child, I didn't have access to these paints, I can absolutely assure you. That would have been a dream come true, I can assure you of that one. But I think it was more likely to be playing with mud in the garden than it was actually working with the paints and inks and stuff. Right, I think it's time for a touch more gold. And as you can see, I'm kind of using the opposite side of my card, so I don't always need to use two cards. Also, looking at this, I can take this off here and just run it across the surface. And that one's done. Oh, there's a lot on there, Griffiths. There you go. I don't need to do any more than that. That's just given me something. Right, this was quite plain. So where's one? Let's use this one in the gold, because I quite like this one. Well, not quite. I very much like this one. This was one of my acquisitions when I went to Chicago, and it was on sale in Michael's. And basically, was it Michael's or was it Hobby? No, it was Michael's. And and it was in the cake area, cake and baking, and I think it was a rectangular trivet, a lot like this one, but I cut the edge off because I wanted that. I didn't want the solid line around it. But this one definitely needs some white on it. Now, you don't always need to reload your mark making tools. It could be that there's enough on them already. I mean, I know there isn't with this one because I just know there isn't. Instinct. Let's have a little bit of that off there because I like that up there. And put that by there. I never wash the mark making tools. They just build up and build up and build up layers of textural paint. Sometimes you will find when you're doing that, the paint comes back off, especially with the bubble wrap, because obviously it's a plastic and it's going to release things. If the surface you're putting it onto is stronger than the bond it's got to the plastic, then it's definitely going to pull it off. Does that need something? No, I think we'll leave that. So now, as I said, we are going to finish these off into envelopes. I'm not going to do fancy envelopes. I'm doing absolutely minimalist work envelopes. We're just going to be gluing the edges, doing a bit of folding, doing a bit of making notches for the thumb. There are definitely fancy envelopes out there you can do. You can make them any size you wish depending on the piece of paper you're using. What I have done, however, is I've cut this so it's no taller than my general journal page. So what do I cut this to in the end? Where's this? There you go. That's 7 inches. And I know most of mine are 8 1/4 deep. The width wise, I know if I fold this up, it's probably going to be no more than 4.5 wide anyway. It's up to you guys. Depends on what you're using them for and how you're using them as to how you utilize them. So also, don't be scared of doing the same technique on several of them, because who's going to see them together? That literally, if you're making them for your stash of ephemera, which is what I'm doing, then you'll probably find that no 2 envelopes are going to go into the same journal or project you're doing anyway. This one looks like it needs some serious help. Let's come in with this. I think if we try and do some of this in white. There you go, that's lightened that up a bit. Let's do this one instead in the gold. So I can get some gold onto that. Yeah, it's instinct, guys. Now, you could be using colours. I mean, it's just because I only use white and metallic doesn't mean you have to. Now, this is one of the ones that I had earmarked for potentially being a spring piece of ephemera. So I'm going to keep this one quite light because I don't know what's going over it. It could be tissue. It could be anything really, couldn't it? We will discover that when I actually make the envelopes prettier than they're going to be when I finish this. I'll just put a bit of that on there. Right, and I want to put white dots in there to carry it through. There you go. It's pulled on. Let's put some there as well because that's a bit dotty. See now. Arguably, if these were vintage papers, the paint would thicken them up to the point they'd be more robust. However, using them as something you're going to open and close and put in and out, I would still avoid doing vintage, really antiquated papers unless I back the antiquated paper first, because I'm just scared my stuff will tear. I see lots of people doing journals and they never tear for them. But knowing the way my luck runs, it would be the one thing I do. It would be a gift for somebody and then it would tear. And that's so not what I want to happen. I want people who enjoy my journals to know that they're made for life, should we say. Now, if anyone is going to ask in the comments, where do I sell my journals? I don't. I make journals for the pleasure of making journals. I then use them for gifts for my friends, my family. I use journals. I've got about 5 journals on the go at the moment of my own. So it's it's something I utilise, I love doing them. There's very rare occasions, but sometimes one may pop up in Happy Mail to somebody and I've made the journal and it just speaks to me of a person I could send it to, and sometimes I just send it to them. I also don't take commissions as well. I think part of that is due to the whole mailing stuff internationally nowadays has become a bit of a nightmare, and I now just don't mail unless it's something I know that, I mean, if a parcel of Happy Mail goes missing and the person doesn't know they're going to receive it, then there's no loss if the parcel goes missing. If, however, someone has purchased something, paying good money for it, then how am I supposed to replace it? Everything that we make as artists is unique. How can I replace it? I can do something in the same style as, but I can never make that thing again. Right, last one. Let's just come in and pick up some of this that's already here. Let's see if I can get anything off this. Put the gold over there. That didn't do what I wanted, but that's fine. Trusting the process to make the process look good. I would like something in there. I wonder if there's anything left on there that will come off. There, that'll do. Right, so there you go. We've quickly done all of those. So here we are. They're all dry. Well, they're as dry as they're going to be today anyway. Again, as I said, I would leave them longer before I started manipulating them, but thought you might want to look and just see what the result of trusting the process has given me. Now, I love these papers. I'm not sure I'm going to turn all of them into envelopes. I've got a feeling I might be making some other things out of these, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it just gives you an idea of what you can achieve just by layering up inks and paints and whatever you want, doing mark making, all those things. But what we're going to do now is, once we finish having a quick look through these, I'm going to actually make 3 envelopes. I'm going to use the 3 different sizes I think that are here, just so you can see how it's done. As I said, in a future video, I will endeavour to share how I decorate these or finish them off, but these are just giving you bases. I really like this one. Actually, let's leave that as one of the ones I'm going to do, because I really like that one. For some reason, you'll look through things and you'll choose a favourite. I know I always do. So, right, let's choose. I've got a couple of smaller ones in here. I know that's sort of mid-size, and that I'd say is a small size. Right, there you go. So let's put those to one side. Now, there are many ways to make an envelope. If there's anything you need to be aware of is, if there's writing on the envelope like there is there, which direction do you want what of that writing to be? Because obviously if I just turn this over, if I fold this up, the writing is going to be upside down, and that's going to be upside down. If I turn the paper upside down to start with, it's going to be the correct way there, and then it should be the correct way there. So I tend to work with the paper upside down. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you'll find you'll do something where you're not going to get the writing in the right direction, or if you've got a pictorial element on it, say there's a picture on one of them you really want to keep, you may have to, if you've ended up with, how can I show you, if you've ended up with something upside down, actually it's better to show, if you've got something upside down, then you may be decorating the envelope anyway. So, again, it's completely up to you how you do this. So we're going to do the mass make style. So I'm just going to fold up. I'd say that's probably about half an inch, maybe just over 1 centimetre. Just trying to work out which way these need to be. I said upside down, didn't I? So I folded it wrong. Well, let's just leave it that way. I'm not going to worry about that because I know that I am definitely going to be decorating these. Yes, I think I'll have that side up, purely because it's more decorated. I don't intend leaving these undecorated. There will be maybe a label on them. There may be a cluster. There may be anything along those lines on these. So another reason I didn't decorate the insides of the envelopes with all the paints is because that's where all the glue will be. So I've just got a bit of scrap paper here. Now for the turn-up section, which is that section, I'm just going to use regular Pritt stick. I use a glue stick, sorry. I use Pritt because I've always used Pritt. I trust it, I know it works, and I'm going to use it. I've also then got myself a bone folder, and I give it a good press down. A couple of reasons. That gives me a nice sharp edge to work upon. It also means that I've squished the glue out along if there's any areas that doesn't have it. So this is the quick bit. So yes, please forgive me for not decorating these in this video, but I should imagine by the time I've edited this video down as it is, it's going to be probably about an hour. And then if I was to decorate a few up, that would probably be at least a half hour to 40-minute video in itself. And I don't think I want to have a video that long, especially when you can see it done in other videos. And decorating, to be honest, is your style. Right. I just corrected that because I'd folded it a bit wonky. Now, there are no set rules to things like how low the flap goes. It's completely up to you. I tend to just judge things. So if that's going to be there, the flap will be below the edge. So if I come up, I like to leave, if generally 2 inches would be a sort of guide, to see what I mean, to give you a reasonable envelope. So I come up, I marry the sides along, press it flat, come over the top, and I fold it where the top comes down to. You don't have to, as I said, there's plenty of different styles out there of how you do these things. This just happens to be the way I like to do them. So, bone folder, again with this one. Now, when you watch Darcy's video, and I do encourage you to watch Darcy's video, she's a very talented lady. She makes an envelope slightly different than these, so check her out to see a different style of envelope. She does a tall, thin envelope, which is another one I do make, although I don't make it that often. It depends on what the project is I'm doing. So again, just folding down, folding the top over. Right, there's a couple of reasons why I did 3. First of all, I want to show you 3 different ways of doing the corners of the flap of the envelope. But also by doing this, I'm giving this glue enough time to dry up a bit because I'm going to have to craft punch it in a minute. So let's go on to how I would finish off the flaps of an envelope. And I mean these flaps up here. First of all, you can just get your corner rounder. Now, this sometimes doesn't work because the paper's too thin. Okay, if you're finding the paper's too thin and the punch doesn't like to do it, put a spare piece of paper here, hold it with your thumb, pinch through both, and then don't glue the paper to it, just take the piece of paper away and it will then punch for you perfectly. So that's the corner rounder. There's this one that I found on the internet a long time ago. It's another way of doing corners. Snip off. Snip off. I do like to give them some sort of shape. It sort of gives them the feel of an envelope. Now, if you don't have either of these, there is one other option I do like to do. Includes the scissors. Now, you've seen me use this so many times, and I will link the video to this once again. It's what I make my tag corners with, but this works equally as well. If you line it up with the edges of your envelope flap and cut along it, try not to slice your finger at the same time. Again, line it up. This just means that you'll get uniform edges. Now, there is one other thing that I sometimes do, but it depends on whether I fold it correctly. So if I look at this, this all looks like it's folded quite nicely down the edges. I've got a slight little bit of an overhang. So right, I'll pull in my small guillotine, and what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll push this up just so I get that slightest bit of a slice off there. Oh, someone did ask what make this is. It's this make, Bira Bira. I got mine on, I think I got it on Amazon, but I saw them on eBay as well. So once I've taken the side off one, I'm also take a little bit off this side as well, just to make sure that it's balanced up. A little chomping through some paint there. Right, is this one even? Ooh, this is a bit of a raggedy edge here. I think I just want to come in and trim that little bit off, and I'll do a little bit on either side. Now, I'm doing it after I've curved the edges of the flap. You could easily do this beforehand. In fact, it'd probably make more sense to do it before you rounded the corners, but I didn't think about it. This one looks okay. Right, so that's it. So now I've done all my housekeeping. They're all ready to go. It's just down to gluing now. No, it's not. I'm lying to you. See, I lied to you blatantly. I'm going to use a small round punch, and I'm going to come in. Now, I'm going to guesstimate where the middle is and give it a little notch. It's only a little tiny notch for me. I don't do a big notch. I just like to put a little notch in there, so you've got some way of getting in and out of the envelope. Maybe a little bit bigger than that then. There you go. And I'll be cleaning bits up off my floor for days after doing all the punching of these. There you go. Now, this is the time at which, if you want to ink anything on the inside of this flap, now is the time to do it. I do sometimes ink only this area because it makes it stand out better. Sometimes I ink all of the edges of my envelopes. It depends on, good grief, I can tell this is a new ink pad. It really depends on your style. It depends on the style of the journal you're working with as well. So right, those to one side. Now, for the next stage, you can use whichever glue you like that isn't too wet. I know it sounds weird, but if you use a really watery glue, it might make the edges of the envelope buckle. But I'm just using art glitter glue purely because it's a quick glue to use for a video. So I'm just going to come along the edge here, put a line along the edge of this envelope. Hopefully in shot. I am in shot for once. And along here. And then fold it over. I tend to go up the middle and go outwards, and then I use my bone folder just to press that edge down, just to make sure it's fully in contact. Art glitter glue dries really, really quickly, but it's best if you make sure it's burnished down and it's fully in contact. So let's do that 2 more times, or twice more, whichever English you're using. Now, in the past, I did try doing this with double-sided tape. It didn't last the test of time. I found double-sided tape eventually loses its sticky when it comes to doing these. And I don't know why it's unique to that, because I use double-sided tape quite often, and I haven't really had a problem in the past. But for some reason, with the envelopes, I don't know whether the paper leaches the glue out of it, the stickiness out of it, I don't know. I'm being a little bit cautious with my bone foldering, purely because these have only been painted today, so the paper isn't fully dried. I mean, it's dry enough, but it's not fully dry. Right, pin back into Lugraphus. So, right, so we have our envelopes. So this gives me an envelope. Now, up to you whether you decorate it or not, which side you decorate it. This could easily be slid into a belly band, say. Could be tucked into the side of a journal. The end height of this is 7 inches. My journal pages are usually 8¼ so it could easily slip in. Again, same with this one. I really like this envelope. I don't know why this one above all else actually appeals to me, and this one as well. Now this one is the one that I bent up the bottom backwards, and it shows you here that the writing is upside down, so I would have to put a strip of something across there, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, I might use this as the front anyway. So hopefully you enjoyed that, guys. As I said, it was inspired by my friend Darcy Saunders. And thank you for that, Darcy. Reminded me that I could make envelopes out of music paper, because I had a whole stack of music paper just sat there doing nothing. So, hope you enjoyed that. I will put as many links as I can to the videos I've referenced below. I will also, once I'm actually done the video where I show decorating some of these, which is going to be for another couple of months, guys, I can tell you, then that link will be in the description box as well, but don't look for it straight away because it won't be there. So, I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's C-E-R-I the Crafter. Until next time, goodbye now.